Hi, hello, and welcome. For today's video, we are going to be doing my January reading wrap-up. I kind of was cruising in January with the reading. It's kind of a little more than I usually do for a month, so this will be interesting and exciting to do. If you see me looking down at all, I'm looking at my reading journal. So, for our stats, I read 8 books total, and then there was 1 DNF as well. So there were 2 fantasy, 5 romance, 1 YA mystery, and then 1 dystopian. So the first book that I read for the year was A Court of Thorns and Roses. I gave it a 3.75 stars. So I actually got the ebook of this through the Libby app from my library. I actually read this back in August, started it, and I just had a lot going on, so I wasn't able to finish it before I needed to return it. I got like 50-ish% through. As soon as I returned it, I immediately placed another hold for it, and I wasn't able to get it again until like just after Christmas. So I started reading it again the last half of the book, and I finished it beginning of January this year. So I counted it as a January read. That's when I finished it. Fantasy isn't really my normal genre. I'm kind of like iffy on some fantasy. Definitely like a little, but not others. So I'm still kind of dipping my toe in it. This was my first Sarah J. Maas book. I kind of felt a little lost in it. And maybe that's honestly just because it's not my normal genre, but I didn't really understand some things. I had trouble with that. So that first half, back when I read it in August, it took me a decent amount of time to get through that first half, and I was kind of just forcing myself to read it a little bit because I know how popular this book is, and I wanted to try and at least finish it and at least read the first book. So I was really trying. I wasn't really into it. I don't know if I just like wasn't paying attention, didn't have enough fantasy knowledge, I guess. I had too much going on, whatever. The first 50%, yeah, was a little hard for me to get into. Definitely the second half, when I picked it up again, was a lot faster for me to finish, and I actually enjoyed the second half of the book a lot more. Okay, so I don't exactly know how to pronounce these names. They're fantasy names, but I know this book and series has a big following, so please don't come at me if I say something wrong. So I didn't really like how Tamlin was treating her when she was down there with them. It just wasn't doing it for me. I was kind of frustrated with him that he was just like ignoring her. I actually, when Rysand was coming into the picture more, there was a moment where I was like, maybe that's her love interest. Obviously it's not, but I think I kind of like him better for her. I don't really know if I'm the only one on that. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just ignorant. But that was my thoughts on that. I thought Rysand was probably better for her than Tamlin. I am probably going to continue this series. Maybe not immediately. I do want to read the Throne of Glass series. I have the first 2 plus the Assassin's Blade. My boyfriend has read both of those series, and he said that I would probably like the Throne of Glass series more and be able to follow along more, so I'm really excited to read that. So okay, next book I finished was How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. This was kind of a long book, I'm not gonna lie. I've seen the physical copies in stores, I read it on Kindle, but the fact that there are more pages in this book than ACOTAR. This book, we have our mailman character, Cole, that takes place in a small town. He's from there, lives there. He's kind of like the grumpy guy that doesn't really participate in town things. And then we have our female main character, Story, she comes and visits her aunt every now and then. They used to do it a lot back when they were kids, and her and Cole hung out together, blah, blah, blah. Then she kind of stopped visiting for a while because she thought she hated the town. They came back to take care of their aunt. They, as in her and her sister, came back to take care of their aunt, and her aunt made her enter in this competition that they have every Christmas to be like the town Kringle. The town is all about Christmas. They absolutely love it. So every year there's this competition. They have things they have to do, different tasks, whatever. They get points awarded to them. You get the gist. So her aunt makes her enter. Cole is like on the fence about her. He kind of low-key hates her because she left. He knows she hates the town, blah, blah, blah. So he enters to run against her. Then, obviously, it's a romance. So as the story progresses and they do the competition against each other, they start to fall in love. And the rest is history. So I gave this book a 4-star. I did like it, but I just thought it was a little too long. I think personally there were some unnecessary parts that probably could have been cut out, making the book a little shorter. But I've been seeing this on TikTok a lot, and I know a lot of people were talking about, oh, it's so spicy, blah, blah, blah. So I was really thinking it was going to be like really spicy. That was my anticipation going into it, and I was expecting something weird, something I wouldn't like. For all of that talk that there was about how spicy the book was, I didn't think it was that much more spicy than some of the other books that everyone reads. So I did like the Christmas competition that they were doing in their small town. It was very cute and everything. I liked their dynamic together and everything. And I actually really enjoyed, in this book, there's like almost a narrator telling it, and that'll come up in every like chapter. Every chapter starts off with like a poem of what's going on. It's kind of like the Christmas story poem. And sometimes there's like banter back and forth between Cole, the male main character, and the narrator. And I thought that was a little interesting and funny and just something different in the book that I really enjoyed. Next up we have Good Boy by Elle Kennedy and Sarina Bowen. I think that's how you say it. I gave this a 2.75 stars. Really killed me to do that because it's an Elle Kennedy book and she's my probably favorite author of all time. I rate all of her books 5 stars because I absolutely love them. But this one was not doing it for me whatsoever. So in this story we have Blake and Jess. Blake is a hockey player on a NHL team. One of his teammates, that's the word, one of his teammates is married to Jess's brother. So there's some connection there. And Jess is kind of just trying to find out who she is in life still. Can't really figure out what she wants to do for a living. So she ends up moving to Toronto, which is where the NHL team is that they're playing on. And she decides to start nursing school. And this is a new town for her, so she doesn't really know a ton of people. So she hangs out with them a lot. They kindle a romance. They had a good connection, but he was just extremely cocky in the way he would talk. I don't know, for me, just like the way he was talking with his confidence and cockiness coming through, it was kind of playing into that like dumb jock hockey player. But in actuality, he had a really emotional side to him and he was really nice and caring to her. So it was kind of like a contradiction of that, and it made you think that he was just this, I don't know. The character had a lot of depth to him, but he was just coming off so cocky, and I just did not like that. It gave me the ick. It was so irritating to me. She was always insisting that they were together even though they weren't, and I just, in that circumstance, it just wasn't doing it for me. Not sure. There is another book in this series. I don't know if I'm gonna read that, but moving on, then I read The Risk by Elle Kennedy. This is the second book in the Briar U? Yeah, Briar U, not Off Campus is the other one. Second book in the Briar U. I devour all of these books, absolutely love both Off Campus and now Briar U series. I think so far this is probably my favorite from the Briar U series, so I'm really interested to read the next two, see how I feel about those and which one's going to kind of come out on top for me from that series, because for me in the Off Campus, I really like The Score. That one's my favorite. So obviously I gave this book a 5 stars. I just absolutely loved Brenna and Jake together. They were so caring, such a sweet couple. Honestly, kind of reminded me of Dean and Allie from The Score, which is really saying something because Dean and Allie are my favorite book couple ever. So the fact that I'm going to equate Jake and Brenna to them really means something. The Risk follows Brenna Jensen and Jake Connolly. Brenna is the daughter of the head coach of the Briar University hockey team. Jake plays for Harvard, which is their big enemy. The team ends up going to the playoffs almost with Harvard against them. It's a big thing, Harvard versus Briar U. Who will win the Frozen Four? Brenna is a sports journalism major, I believe. And she's trying to navigate that world, get an internship and a job in a mainly male-dominated industry. But she really knows her stuff. She knows her hockey. She loves her hockey. So she's trying to get in with this company who covers a lot of hockey, and it's like one of the top companies in the industry to get an internship and a job with. But obviously, the boss and the CEO is a complete misogynist. So she struggles to impress him and show him that she really knows what she's talking about, and she really is the right person for the job. So she uses Jake, because he absolutely adores him. She uses Jake as like her fake boyfriend to kind of showing him like, oh, pay attention to me almost. So they have to do a little fake dating to impress the boss. Jake Connolly fell, and he fell hard for Brenna. And clearly she was everything he needed. He was everything she needed. They were obviously going to be endgame together. I also absolutely loved that Brenna and her dad reconnected in the end. They kind of had some turmoil going on, and he truly didn't even care that she was dating and falling for this guy who plays for the rival hockey team at Harvard. He just wanted her to be happy, and I love that they just reconnected. Absolutely love that. Next up, we have Iron Flame. I read this for one of my book clubs. I gave it a 3.5 stars. It just wasn't doing it for me like Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing, I was so into, didn't want to put it down. Absolutely love the storyline. Kept me drawn in the whole time. I think Iron Flame, the first portion of the book just wasn't drawing me in like Fourth Wing was. So it was kind of a lot to push through. Plus, I listened to this, and this book was 28 hours listening. I don't know if anyone else thinks this, but I personally get huge Harry Potter vibes from this series. I just personally see a lot of connections, and maybe that's what helps me with this series, considering it is fantasy and that's not my usual genre. I don't always fully understand and follow along in fantasy books, as we talked about in ACOTAR, but Harry Potter is something I grew up with, read the books, watched the movies, So I personally think seeing kind of some of the connections back to that kind of helped me along in following along with this story. So skip ahead a little bit if you haven't read this and don't want spoilers, because I'm gonna kind of talk about some things that are my thoughts that might spoil some things for you. I personally thought the biggest shock was that Jack Barlow was alive, but then it kind of like, it was like, oh, he's alive, and then it just kind of got put on the back burner. So I knew something was gonna be up with that. I was like, there's no way you're just gonna have him be alive and then just nothing comes of it. So I was a little suspicious of that, and I was absolutely correct. I just didn't expect it to be what it was. So I think that's still kind of good, because then I still had that shock and everything and that reaction that she was probably going for when she was writing this. Him being the evil person makes sense for him, but I was like, whoa. Okay, and then finding out that Xaden turned evil to defeat the Sage, I was just like, the ending, I was just like, what do we do now? What is happening next? What is gonna come next? I have Onyx Storm, haven't started it yet. I've heard mixed reviews. But I was just like, I don't know what to do right now. How is this going to come to fruition, I guess, almost, in the next books? Like, he just can't be evil. That makes me so sad. Oh, and then my other favorite part was finding out that, listen, don't come for me on this. I was not expecting this at all. Finding out that Andarna is the sixth, whatever, the last type or kind of dragon, and she's just like her own special thing, and she can be whatever color she wants. I was like, jaw on the floor, loved it so much. I think Andarna's the cutest thing ever, so I just absolutely loved that, and she gets her own little special like part almost. I don't know, I just loved it. Okay, moving on. The next book I read was The Haunting by Natasha Preston. This is a YA mystery. I love Natasha Preston's books. I just like devour them. They're such a page turner for me. You have no idea what's going on. There's so many like unexpected turns to them always. So her books are kind of like an automatic buy for me almost. I usually give hers like a 5 stars, just because they're so out there and it's not something you expected and they're such page turners. But I did give this one a 4 stars, just because for me it was a little slow getting into. But nonetheless, in the ending, there were a lot of shocking turns that I didn't see coming. I was kind of wanting to read to the end, so that did kind of get me back into it a little more. The Haunting deals with a town that the previous year had just gone through a slew of murders, and there was a serial killer. Serial killer was found, turned out to be Penny, who was our female main character, and Nash is our male main character, basically. They were dating at that time, and the serial killer ended up being Nash's dad. But in the end, we find a little plot twist with all of that. So basically, is the next year, the killings start up again right around the same time, Halloween. Things are kind of very similar with the murders, almost like there's a copycat. The killer's very much out to get Penny. He chases her. She's the one that finds most of the bodies. So it's definitely getting targeted to her. After the first murders, her parents kind of made her break up and not talk to Nash anymore. The town shunned Nash and his sister. So in the present time now, Penny's kind of rekindling with Nash, talking to him again, but also trying to hide it because everyone is really against Nash. And then in the end, we find out the killer, obviously, but there are some unexpected plot twists, as usual for a Natasha Preston book. Not going to give anything else because that really spoils the plot twists. Should I completely redo this? I've been sitting here for 30 minutes. I feel like this isn't how I should do a reading wrap-up. Moving on, this is actually the first book that I read that I have the physical copy. No, just kidding. That's not true. I have the physical copy of Iron Flame, technically, but I didn't actually read the physical copy, and it's in the other room. So, next I read Daydream by Hannah Grace. This is the third book in the Maple Hills series. I did enjoy Icebreaker, didn't really enjoy, Wildfire. So I kind of had mixed emotions going into Daydream, but I knew a lot of people liked it, so I was excited to get into that, and it really paid off because this ended up being a 5-star read for me. She absolutely killed it with this one. There was so much emotional depth in it, and there was a big, there was a big presence of mental health brought into this, which I really liked. And I think overall it just gave their story more to me than the other two ones. Don't get me wrong, there was a good mental health depiction in Wildfire too, but this one just did it for me. I think this is my favorite out of the series. So this one follows Henry and Hallie. I think it's Hallie or Haley. I don't really know the pronunciation of it but I called her Hallie. Anyways, so basically Henry is the captain of the hockey team now. He's kind of going through a struggle of, do I want this position? I need to be a good leader. I need to stand up to that. Puts a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and he doesn't want to let the team down. He also is kind of struggling with one of his classes. He meets Hallie, who is a fellow student, and she has taken one of this professor's classes and did really well. She doesn't have a ton of friends, kind of sticks to herself. She's an author, aspiring to be, enters a writing competition, kind of experienced in like the dating world. So he kind of helps her along with that. They kind of fake date a little bit. He tries to give her like experience so that she can write about them in her book and become a better author. She also had a really toxic ex, so he kind of helps her get through that a little bit. And they were just so cute together. Also has some found family in it. This whole friend group is amazing to each other and together. I love them. Next book I read was Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. I gave this a 4.5 stars. I know some people didn't really like this book. She's kind of a YA writer most of the time, but she does have a few, I think, other ones as well as this one of adult romance, and some people just didn't like it as much, but I absolutely love this book. Basically, the premise of this book is the male main character, who is Max and Sophie. Max is an objector for weddings. He will get paid to stand up in that portion of the wedding when they say, does anyone object to this couple? He will stand up and say, I do, I object. And it kind of helps the couples get out of situations. They usually know going into it, at least one of them does going into it, and helps them get out of a sticky situation, whatever that may be. There was a couple of different ones. But Sophie is actually one of the brides that he stood up and objected to, and they kind of reconnect after a while. Then there's a little bit of fake dating as well. She's trying to get a promotion from her job, but her bosses don't see that she is having a social life or is happy in her life. A little bit toxic in my opinion that they are considering her job for that. But anyways, she kind of has to prove to her boss that she is talking to a guy, going out on dates, doing things for herself again, and in order to get this promotion. Meanwhile, he is doing this for his own types of reasons. Similar to that, he's trying to become the new owner of his family's construction company, and his mom does not want to go off and retire to Florida or wherever, I think it's Florida, until she knows that her son is taken care of, as she likes to put it, basically gonna get married. So he wants to prove to them that he has a girl, he's fit, he's fine, he's taken care of, fit for the job, they can go off and retire. I absolutely adored their chemistry in this. There were such sparks and they really knew each other. I love when there's like such little time that they have known each other, but they just like truly mentally and physically know the person. I could not get enough of the end when she professes her love. She really had such a revelation because she was like, I don't believe in love. I'm not a relationship person after what happened in my past relationship. I just don't believe that there is true love or soulmates. But she had a revelation and realized that Max is the one for her and he knows her truly and deeply. All right, last up we have The Handmaid's Tale. This is my DNF for the month. This was a book club pick, my other book club. This is kind of a political dystopian. I just could not get into it. I have seen some of the show. I have not finished it, and it's been a long time since I've seen it. So reading it kind of jogged my memory a little bit of the show, which I did like, but I DNF'd it probably at like 21%. And I usually try to give a book at least 25, and I was really trying to get there, trying to push through, but I just could not. It was way too slow for me. There was basically nothing happening, in my opinion. I was really trying to get into this because I wanted to see how it was going to end. Obviously, I didn't finish the show, so I don't know how the show ends either. And I also wanted to see kind of the similarities between the book and the show. I was interested to see, because I know there's only 2 books. There's another book after this one, but there's a decent amount of seasons. I want to say there's like 6 seasons of the show. Don't quote me on that. But so I wanted to see like how much of the book they're following, how much the creators of the show are kind of making up for it. But I literally just could not get into it. It was just not doing it for me. I think another thing that was really confusing to me was I personally don't like when authors don't use quotations when speaking. I don't know. For my brain, it's just a little confusing. And it started to do that, but then sometimes there were quotes used when people were talking, and then it would kind of go back and forth. I think the quotes being used were kind of defining if it was present or past, but I didn't really like that. I didn't understand why. I think that is the true like reasoning behind that, but I'm not positive. But either way, it was kind of hard to decide and determine that, oh, this is something that's happening in the past, and that should be written a little more clearly, in my opinion. And if I didn't pick up on the quotations being used or not, and I might be wrong on this, I don't know, but if I didn't pick up on that, I would be very lost. So to me, that speaks that like it just wasn't defined as well and wasn't really adding to the story. I don't know. Don't hate on me. I know that a lot of people, I read the Goodreads reviews, a lot of people loved the book and they were like, this was a 5-star, but I could not get into it at all whatsoever. And it honestly kind of put me in a reading slump. So that's all that I have for today. That was my reading wrapped up for January. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do a reading wrap up every single month. Maybe I'll combine months. Maybe I just won't do it sometimes. Kind of depends on how I feel, how many books I read, if it's even worth it, whatever. So like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what books you're reading right now? I would like to know. I don't really necessarily need more books on my TBR, but they are always welcome. Alright, see you in the next video.